Good evening. My name is Richard Chapman, President and CEO of the Kern Economic Development Corporation. Our mission is to cultivate and promote the county's boundless opportunities for business. We're excited to partner with California State University, Bakersfield, and the Greater Bakersfield Chamber over 23 years of helping tell the story of Kern County's incredible economic vitality and diversity. On this evening's program, we will feature several economists discussing and highlighting regional, statewide, and national trends. And we will hear from healthcare and energy industry experts discussing the opportunities and challenges that await their sector in the coming year. And now let's hear from Kaiser Permanente and Adventist Health, our platinum sponsors for tonight's Economic Summit.
Hello, I'm Jason Wells, President of Adventist Health in Kern County.
And I'm Maybelle Quegan, Senior Vice President of Kaiser Permanente, Kern County.
Our healthcare teams are a critical part of our community. Through the pandemic, it became clear how essential healthcare is for Kern County.
Today, many patients are in more advanced stages of the health challenges they are facing, largely in part because of the pandemic. These diseases have been responsible for a large portion of the increasing cost of treatment and management and are putting a strain on healthcare systems.
The current healthcare system is often reactive instead of proactive. As healthcare providers, a significant opportunity exists for us to take the lead in educating our community around lifestyles that create health so we can help heal Kern County both financially as well as enhancing the quality of life.
The rising cost of healthcare is a significant challenge that we face in 2023. Healthcare costs have been increasing at a much faster rate than inflation, putting a strain on individuals and families who are struggling to pay for medical care. As we look toward the future, it's important to recognize that as healthcare providers, our two organizations are committed to serving Kern County in new and innovative ways.
Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente are committed to working with local educational institutions to increase the pipeline of nurses, physicians, and allied healthcare professionals to address staffing shortages. And we have teamed up with the Blue Zones Project Bakersfield to make the healthier choice the easier choice. We're partnering with workplaces, churches, and schools throughout Bakersfield to get people walking together, eating a little more healthful, and connecting with one another. Our goal is to make a meaningful and measurable impact on well-being.
Kaiser Permanente has 13 locations throughout Kern County that provide a combined $418 million a year in employee salaries and physician compensation. Additionally, Kaiser Permanente provides $232 million annually to local hospitals, ambulance companies, skilled nursing facilities, and ambulatory surgical centers that provide care to our 120,000 members locally.
Adventist Health has 3 medical centers in Kern County, located in Bakersfield, Delano, and Tehachapi, as well as many medical clinics and imaging centers. Adventist Health is also home to the AIS Cancer Center, which is celebrating 10 years of making a difference in the lives of those impacted by cancer. The Cancer Center ensures people in Kern County have access to the highest quality cancer care close to home.
Annually, Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente contribute $66 million toward important programs that target food insecurity, mental health, and homelessness, and promote healthy lifestyles by living an active life and eating well.
Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente are looking to create 100,000 new well-paying jobs through investment and engagement in the healthcare careers pipeline.
Together, Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente heal this community in ways that go beyond medical care, impacting the economic health of Kern County and its residents.
Thank you for joining us for the 2023 Kern County Economic Summit. I'm Hillary Haynes, Interim President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber. We're excited to partner again with Cal State Bakersfield and Kern EDC for an update on Kern County's economy. This broadcast would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, the knowledge and perspectives of our speakers, and of course, the talented team at KGET. Thank you to our platinum sponsors, Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente. I would like to recognize the rest of our incredible sponsors. Our diamond sponsors, Era Energy and Alta One Federal Credit Union. Gold sponsors, Kern County Superintendent of Schools and Valley Strong Credit Union. Silver sponsors, Chevron and Kern County. And our bronze sponsors, AT&T, the Bakersfield College Foundation, Bank of America, California Resources Corporation, Kern Family Healthcare, McPherson Energy Corporation, the Taft College Foundation, Tri-Counties Bank, and Wonderful Real Estate Development. We truly appreciate our sponsors, who are the economic drivers of our region. This program is only possible with your continued support.
What does joint pain keep you from more of? Taking extra swings at your favorite hobby? Nourishing your soul with family time? Just seeing how far you can go? Who knows all the things you could do more of without joint pain? At Adventist Health, we understand your knees, hips, and back aren't just parts to be treated. They're parts of what make you uniquely you. That's why we're not just here to put more years in your life. We're here to put more life in your years.
You didn't choose cat allergies. You didn't choose your hairline, hot flashes, the flu, or that thing when your knee just gives out for no reason. You didn't choose your bad back, or this, or that. You didn't choose depression, melanoma, or lactose intolerance. But with Kaiser Permanente, you can choose your doctor who works with other best-in-class specialists to care for all that is you. The doctor will see you now. But do they really? Do they see that crick in your neck? That ache in your heart? Will they see that funny little thing that wasn't there last year? The new bounce in your step? The way your retinal scan connects to your blood sugar? At Kaiser Permanente, all of us work together to care for all that is you.
Greetings from the Roadrunner family at California State University, Bakersfield. I'm Dr. Vernon Harper, the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs here at CSUB, this community's trusted partner in developing the next generation of leaders. And I'm delighted to report that in a matter of days, CSUB will send another 2,000 graduates out into the region to identify opportunities, provide solutions, and lead this community forward with vision and integrity. As the only four-year public university within 100 miles, CSUB is rooted in the community, and the community is rooted in CSUB. We move forward as one, working together to imagine a future that will expand opportunity and prosperity for every family here in the heart of California. Since the founding of our county in 1866, we have built a heritage of hard work and enterprise. That reputation extends throughout the world with every harvest, every energy discovery, and every daring aerospace triumph recorded in the endless skies above our deserts. The will to work defines us. In agriculture, our crops have surpassed 8 billion for the first time ever, making Kern County the #1 producer of fruits and vegetables in the country. CSUB's agribusiness focus gives our students the real-world education they need to contribute to this driver of our economy and cherished part of our heritage. In energy, CSUB is joining with industry leaders, policymakers, and scientists to develop technologies and strategies to help California reach its ambitious climate goals. And our brilliant economists are envisioning opportunities for workforce as we build a new model for prosperity. In entrepreneurship, CSUB has developed a robust local business accelerator network to jumpstart innovation throughout our community. But the most valuable resource that CSUB contributes to the local economy is simple: our graduates. Most of the students who enroll at CSUB come from hardworking parents who didn't have the opportunity to attend college. These students know the meaning and making of great sacrifice in the pursuit of a dream. But a CSU degree turns those sacrifices into opportunities. Cal State Bakersfield leads every national survey that tracks economic and social mobility of students, and that is the most important ranking of all. With a CSUB degree, our students can go anywhere. but most stay right here in their home region, helping their families, neighbors, and the greater community rise together as one. Thank you, and may we work together to seize the brighter future that is just beyond the horizon for every family in Kern County.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Aaron Hegde. I'm a professor and chair of economics at California State University, Bakersfield. So today, I will give you an overview of the economy, what happened last year in 2022, focusing on Kern economy as well as a part of the Bakersfield economy. And then I'll conclude with some thoughts about what's going to happen in the rest of 2023. So looking at the overview of the US economy, one of the things that probably everybody's heard about and that you see is inflation. That's all anybody talks about. Anytime I say I'm an economist, they say, what's happening with inflation? So today we'll focus a little bit on inflation. And just as a little background, inflation is measured by looking at a basket of goods that consumers buy and then tracking that over time. As it changes, as it increases, we have inflation. As it decreases, we have deflation. So in the last month, inflation has gone up by about 0.5%. But then when you compare it from last year, inflation is about 5.1%. Now that's a lot lower than what we had last year, and we'll see that in just a minute. But part of it is there's been an increase in food prices, and that's increased about 8% over the last year. Food prices are approximately about 14 to 15% of that CPI, that basket of goods that we're calculating. Energy prices have decreased about 4.3%. A big decrease has been the price of gasoline, which has decreased by about 13% almost over the last year. And gasoline, or energy I should say, is about 14% of the CPI. So it's part of that inflation calculation. And within it, natural gas has increased by about 12%. Electricity has increased about 8%. And then another sector is the used vehicles. During COVID, there was a lot of demand for the used vehicles because there was issues with the supply chain. So because there wasn't enough inventory of new cars, a lot of people were wanting to buy used cars. And as a result, the prices went up. But in the last year, now that as supply chains have fixed, the used vehicle prices has decreased about 10.9%. And the last component is shelter or housing. And that's increased about 8%. So the CPI, which is a consumer price index, is a basket of goods that is tracked throughout the economy on a monthly basis. So if you look at this particular chart, you see the components of this CPI. So there's food, there's energy, and there's shelter. These are some of the most important components of the CPI. So we'll look at what's happening in those sectors during this presentation. So as we look at the inflation, which is the year-over-year changes in this consumer price index, what we notice is that it peaked around 9% and now is coming down, with currently being 5.1%. So this is the role for the Federal Reserve, where the Federal Reserve, through controlling interest rates, tries to bring inflation down. They have a target of about 2% every year, and they're supposed to be bringing inflation down to 2%. And they do that by raising interest rates. And we've seen a series of increases in interest rates over the last year and a half. And we expect to continue this going into this year. So for the end of this year, we expect inflation to come down to about 3%, which means that the interest rates have increased. And then by 2024, we expect the interest rates to come down to 2.5%. And this is close to the target that the Federal Reserve has been given of trying to get the inflation rate to 2%. So how do they do this? By increasing interest rate. As they increase the interest rates, the economy slows down, and as the economy slows down, you see lower prices. Conversely, if they were to lower the interest rate, economy picks up, and as the economy picks up, unemployment goes down. So this particular chart looks at the real GDP growth, which is the change in the gross domestic product, which is the measure of an economy, over time. As you can see, in 2020, again, because of the pandemic, there was a steep decline in the GDP. As the economy opened up, as people started going back to work, people started shopping, the GDP started increasing. And then typically, in a mature economy like the US, you see the GDP around 2% growing every year. And that was we we've seen the last year. So when you look at the measure of the economy, because it takes a long time to calculate all the production and all these other stuff, we usually get the size of the economy, the growth of the economy, the GDP about a quarter behind. So this is from last quarter. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll get information about this year's current quarter. So for 2023, we expect the GDP to slow down, the economy to slow down, because the Federal Reserve is increasing the interest rates. And as it slows down, we expect the growth to be about 0.5%, unlike the 2 and 4% that we've had in the last couple of years. And by 2024, the economy will be back up again, and we'll probably see it around 2.5%, 3%, which is what is normal for our economy. So coming closer to home, when you look at Kern County, this is a graph that looks at Kern County's GDP growth over the last decade. And obviously 2012 was a great year. Economy grew a little over 9%. And then of course, the thing about Kern County, because you're looking at a smaller area and the Census Bureau doesn't collect data that often, so we are usually a year behind. So later this year, we'll get data on 2022. On 2021, which was just after the pandemic had hit and we're trying to recover and the economy had shut down and things like that, we were down about 1.1%. And so for 2022, my forecast is that the GDP will be back up again, probably around 2%. And then for 2023, we'll see the GDP slow down again. So the current economy will slow down. So as the economy gets better and it slows down, this has an impact on people's jobs. And that's measured by looking at the unemployment rate. So when you look at the unemployment rate, again, everything is pre-COVID and post-COVID. Although, well, maybe we're not in complete post-COVID yet, but it's after the COVID hit. So in 2020, you see the same thing. When the economy was shut down, people were sent home, you see unemployment skyrocketed. And unemployment in Bakersfield is almost always higher than in the rest of the country. So currently, unemployment in Bakersfield is 8.9%, and in the rest of the country, it's about 3.6%. So one of the things that happened out of COVID is when people were sent home, not everybody came back. Some people stayed because they got some assistance from the government, unemployment and pandemic payments and things like that. Some people had to provide dependent care. People then started reflecting on whether they really wanted to come back to work. The measure of people who are in the economy and working is what we call the labor force participation rate. And when you look at this chart, you can see that over time, in the 50s and the 60s, the labor force participation rate starts rising. And a big reason for that is because a lot of women started entering the workforce. So this is a measure of the number of people that are working or are looking for work out of the population, age 16 and over. As the population ages, or you have a lot of 16 to 20-year-olds that are in school and so they're not really looking for work, but they're still part of the labor force participation rate. So as the people leave the economy because they get older or decide they no longer want to work, the labor force participation rate decreases. And you see that from the 1990s, that rate has been decreasing. What you notice is that steep drop is in 2020, COVID, once again. And if you look at it closer, you will see a lot of people stay at home during COVID, and whether they're afraid of getting COVID again or getting COVID, or that they've reconsidered their lifestyle, they've stayed back. And then as the economy has opened, you see that people are coming back and that labor force participation rate starts increasing. And as it does, they notice there's not as many job openings because the employers were actually hoarding employees, which is a relatively new phenomena in that employers didn't want the people to be let go because it would cost them more to find them and then try to recruit them back. So as a result, they hoard the employees even if they don't necessarily need them. So when people are entering the labor force again, they may not find the work they're looking for. I predict that unemployment will increase, especially here in Kern County, especially in Bakersfield, but then it will kind of level off by the end of the year. And as the economy turns back around again in 2024, it will start going down again. So looking back at inflation, one of the components, and 14% of that CPI, the basket, is food. Let's imagine this morning you had breakfast. Okay, with this typical standard breakfast, 2 pieces of toast, a tablespoon of butter, 1 egg, a couple of slices of bacon, 8 ounces of orange juice, 8 ounces of coffee. As I looked at it, I realized that's a lot of cholesterol with the butter, bacon, and egg. But unless you're a vegan, that's your breakfast. If you were to look at the prices today, and I did this for April 22nd, you'll see that that breakfast made at home cost $2.83. And this is a composite of prices in the Bakersfield area. Walmart, Target, Albertsons, Vons, and all these other places. The same breakfast, exactly a year ago, would have cost you $2.57. So from last year to this year, that's an increase of 12%, which is in line with what you see happening in the general food area, agriculture. It's higher than our regular inflation, which is about 9%. But a big component of this is, when you look at the individual commodities, so these are all like fruits, vegetables, and broader categories. And the one thing that you see sticking out there, and I'm not exaggerating about this, is the price of eggs. Went up 120%. And here's a little more detailed look at that price. So this is the average price for a dozen grade A large eggs. Take the price all over the country, major cities, and then they average it out. For the most part, it's about the same. It doesn't change a whole lot. Something happened in March of 22. Not COVID, because that was in 20. 22, we got hit by the avian flu. And over the course of 2022, we lost about 40 million birds, chickens laying eggs. We lost about 40 million of them, and the price dramatically increased, and you see it peaking at $4.82 in January of 2023. Since then, it's come down because it takes about 6 months to grow chickens and then for them to start laying eggs. And the typical chickens average, they lay about 1 egg per day. So you see that has decreased. But looking ahead for 2023, for the rest of 2023, you'll see prices go up. Most people eat at home about 2/3 of the time, but about 1/3 of the time we eat outside. So we see that price going up by about 8%. And the cost of food at home also goes up by 8%. But specifically, price of pork, which is where we get our bacon from, will go down about 1%. But then you see the price of eggs will continue to increase because we haven't quite got the balance yet between supply and demand. Another reason for that is because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. What does that have to do with eggs? Well, Russia and Ukraine are large producers of fertilizers. That has an impact on the feed for chicken, which has an impact on the price, which then is why we'll see the price of eggs staying high for this next year. Next important thing, gasoline. Everybody is worried about the price of gas. There's a lot of things going on, but when you see the price of gas at the pump, that's the thing that bothers people. In fact, in other countries, it's brought down presidencies because people had to pay too much for gas. So this is a graph from 1976 to 2023 of the US average retail gasoline per gallon. You can see there's a lot of variability in there. This is one of the reasons why when you look at the Federal Reserve looks at inflation and the CPI, they remove food, which also is very volatile, and they remove energy, specifically gasoline, because it's also very volatile. So you can see that volatility. And this is a little closer look at home in Bakersfield. Again, you can see the green line is the price of crude oil in general. This is West Texas crude. And the red line is the price of gasoline per gallon in Bakersfield. The blue line is the price of gasoline, average price across the US. And Bakersfield is almost always $1 higher than the US because we're better than the rest of the country. So we pay more for our gas. So you can look at it in most recent data, it's $4.78 per gallon, and of course that changes, and the price of oil is about $78 a barrel. So I predict, as we see every summer, except for the COVID summer in 2020, that the price of gasoline will rise during the summer, and then during the fall months it will fall back down. And I anticipate by the end of the year it will be between $4.75 to $5 a gallon for gasoline, and the price of oil will probably level off around $75 a barrel. Of course, so you've had your breakfast, you've driven to work, now you're going to come back home at night. That is about 1/3 of the CPI, the cost of your housing. So one of the ways they measure shelter is they look at what people would have paid if they were renting their house, even though they own it, and then they look at what rents are. So by the time, because rental agreements are for a year or two, by the time you get all those things, it takes a long time, so there's usually a lag in housing. So this is Kern County's median home price, and you can see the trend. It's been increasing since about 2020, except for the last few months here in 2023, where it's kind of declining. So I predict that again, you'll typically see the more sales during the summer months. So I think the price will go up a little bit, the median price, but then you'll kind of get down and level off by the end of the year. And looking more closely at Bakersfield, you see that the median home price is $380,000. Other important statistics that you see is the number of homes sold. So compared to last year, that's down about 25%. So there's not as many homes being sold because if you sell your home, unless you're moving out of town, you need another house. And right now, the interest rate or your mortgage is much higher than it would be in the house that you're leaving. So you may have a mortgage of 3.5%, but if you leave and buy a house now, it'll be 6 or 6.5%. So I predict the home prices will increase a little bit, fall a little bit, and then kind of level off by the end of this year. So around 370, 365 is I think what you'll see by the end of the year. So all of that with some concluding thoughts. So looking at 2022 and then looking ahead to 2023, we can see that in 2023, the economy will slow down. Real GDP will be lowered to about 0.5%, but it will pick back up in 2024. Inflation will continue to decrease, and it will level off around 3% by the end of the year and about 2.5% by 2024. Food prices will mostly decrease with some exceptions, like eggs. Gas prices will increase slightly over the summer, but then kind of drop back and level off. Housing sales will also level off, with median home prices decreasing slightly and then increasing towards the end of the year. And finally, there's a greater than 50% chance of a recession to the end of the year, probably a little more into 2024, but whenever we have this recession, it'll be a mild one. It is what they call a soft landing. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Looking ahead to a new era in California energy. Our expertise and commitment to innovation, from providing traditional energy for years to come to assessing renewable energy, to testing lower carbon technology solutions, we are playing a major role in California's energy transformation. By working together, we can secure future jobs and economic growth for our communities and the state.
The future we have in front of us is the opportunity of a lifetime. And the reason why is because the energy transition, or the energy transformation as I would call it, is happening right now in front of our eyes, in real time. And we have the opportunity to be in the middle of it, and not just be in the middle of it, but actually shape it for the better.
ERA, an economic driver for California for decades to come.
At Alta One Federal Credit Union, banking local means investing in you. Investing in your home.
Para mí una casa significa algo grande, que pues es donde puedo tener mi familia, puedo tener tranquilidad y pues paz más que nada. Y pues tengo la oportunidad de darle un poco más a mi familia de otras maneras, pues de otra forma.
Investing in your life.
Alta One cares, and they're here for you. They want to see you win, they want to push you forward, and they want to give you the tools that you need to secure self-sufficiency and a better life for yourself.
Bank local. Bank at Alta One. Investing in you since 1947.
Welcome to the 2023 Economic Summit. I'm Eric Barch, President and CEO of ERA Energy. As a longtime California business and oil and gas producer, ERA works with many Kern County companies, suppliers, and community members to provide quality work and economic growth in a place we call home. At ERA, we see an exciting future as we welcome new ownership who believe, as we do, that there's an important role for California's oil and gas producers today and into the future. With their support, combined with our expertise and innovative spirit, we aim to play a key role in the state's energy transformation that builds on Kern's reputation as a top energy producing region. By producing traditional energy and working to deploy low carbon technologies, we're committed to a future of coexistence between oil and gas and renewables, delivering the safe, reliable, and affordable energy that Californians have come to expect. So, Kern County, let's get to work, building alliances and doing what it takes to deliver an energy future that utilizes the best of who we are and ensures that no one is left behind as California takes steps to achieve our bold climate goals.
Good evening. For this portion of the 2023 Kern Economic Summit, we have several prominent healthcare leaders in Kern County to talk about challenges to the healthcare delivery system here in Kern County, but also significant opportunities. I am Dr. Richard Gerhardt, Associate Professor of Economics at CSU Bakersfield, and joining me on the panel are Jason Wells, President, Adventist Health Central California Network, Maybelle LeKeegan, Senior Vice President for Kaiser Permanente, and BJ Preedom, President and CEO, Dignity Health Mercy Hospital Downtown and Mercy Hospital Southwest. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So let me ask some questions that would help inform Kern County about what's going on. So Jason, how do your organizations respond to the out-migration of healthcare in Kern County?
Yeah, it's always one of the challenges, how do we give people the confidence that Kern County has unbelievable health care, which we do, and they can stay here in town. And so I think it's through the partnerships. We built a great partnership with Kaiser, great partnership with Kern Medical, and as we manage up Dignity and they manage up us, letting know that over 10% of people think they need to go to LA for their care. And the vast majority of care can be done here. Yeah, we're not going to be doing liver transplants anytime soon, but so much more could be done here. That's tremendous economic development. That's jobs, that is care staying local, don't have to go over the grapevine. And so as we partner, as we manage each other up and better collaborate, I think more care will stay in Kern County and it will be better for everyone.
That is phenomenal to hear. So Maybelle, along with the out-migration of patients, with a shrinking healthcare workforce, what are your organizations doing to work on creating a pipeline of skilled clinicians?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that I'm proud that I'm a registered nurse by heart. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. But Kaiser Permanente has been working for quite some time to increase the pipeline of healthcare professionals. We start with students in junior high school through a KP program called the Hippocrates Circle, where we introduce students to what it would look like to have a career in healthcare through a 5-week program in collaboration with Bakersfield City School District and CSU Bakersfield. Then we move into high school space, where we began to partner with Kern High School District CTEC Health Program. We have leaders and clinicians from multiple healthcare disciplines who will be providing their expertise to supplement the already really incredible program by having their partnership. We support Bakersfield College and Cal State University Bakersfield through scholarships and grants, targeting an increase in the number of nurses and mental health clinicians. Lastly, Kaiser Permanente made a strategic investment in the creation of the Kaiser Permanente Bernard J. Tyson School of Medicine in 2020, with a class of 50 students who will be graduating in 2024. We're excited that this is a diverse class of students who will be serving not just KP members, but the whole community of California.
That is exciting, especially as a Kaiser member myself. So BJ, would you like to comment on this?
I would love to. It's been hard the last 3 years. We've seen an exodus of some of our skilled providers in our environment, either through retirement or going into agency and traveling through our country during this difficult time. For Mercy, we have a Galen residency program for our nurses, and this is where we take new graduates and we essentially bring them into the fold, and we give them 12 to 24 weeks of additional training after graduation in specific areas. And we have found that to be incredibly helpful. This isn't new, since the pandemic, but it has been vital to our continued growth and recruitment in getting these skilled providers out of our local colleges to come into our fold. So that's been incredible. We are looking at about 40 to 60 Galen residents just at the Mercy campus per year. Memorial has a Versant program that does very, very similar things with those new graduates. So that's amazing. We also have extern programs where we'll take the students when they're in school, bring them in, and that's about 60 to 80 students per year. Give them that frontline, clinical experience during the time that they're students, and then hopefully they enter into the Galen program upon graduation. So we're excited about that, and that takes care of nurses. New to Dignity Health and Common Spirit it's called the More in Common Alliance, and it is a joint venture between Common Spirit and Morehouse School of Medicine, and we're going to be starting graduate medical education programs here in Bakersfield. So Memorial is going to be going live with our graduate medical education programs in 2025, and Mercy will be going live in 2028. So we are going to see that bring in new residents, new providers into our community. The studies have shown that where residents do their residency programs, then they tend to stay. We have that opportunity because Bakersfield has, it can be a little difficult to recruit in
Sure.
some areas. So that's an amazing program. The other thing about that program that's just incredible is it hits diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's with a focus on culturally competent care. So we are excited to see what that brings into our community and that continued growth from our clinical providers in our systems.
Awesome. Those are fantastic developments, especially for an area that suffers from a lack of healthcare providers, but such a growth opportunity. So kind of to follow up with that, BJ, with the known poor health outcomes data for Kern County, what are your organizations doing in partnership to improve the overall health of the residents of Kern County?
Yeah, so that's important for all of us here, and collaborative partnerships are so important. So for Dignity Health, we have our special needs and community outreach programs, and really that program is so diverse where it connects to basic needs, food, clothing, just those basic needs from our community members to education, support, access to care, continued pouring into the community. You can't do that without collaborative partners. I looked this morning at how many collaborative partners our special needs and outreach program collaborate with. 114. On one hand, it blew me away. On the other hand, it's not surprising because this community comes together, our schools, our churches, our healthcare organizations, every piece, our not-for-profits, and we're all coming together through grants, through all of these things to impact our community, improve the education in the community, and really find a way through our community health needs analysis and working together to infuse our patients, our community, into our health system where they desperately need that care.
That's awesome. Maybelle, what are Kaiser's thoughts on this?
Well, I'm in full agreement with BJ. Obviously, in healthcare, that's very important that we not just support the community, but ensure the health of the community that we serve. So access to care and support for the safety net clinics as well, and specifically helping our medical members as well, which is very important. We do that through grant, like you mentioned, local, region, and national level. We also want to make sure that we have significant investments when it comes to addressing healthcare social needs, and not only for the members, but for the community that we serve. We actually have a Thrive local resources that we promote with our members so that they could have access to care, transportation, and any needs social needs that they need. At the end of the day, we have an obligation to ensure that we promote health equity for all.
That's awesome. We've talked about some of the comparative advantages of getting health here in Kern County. We've talked about some of the challenges of retaining and recruiting healthcare personnel. We've talked about, the poor health outcomes. What are some indicators for your organization in 2023 and in the future about how your organizations are going to improve healthcare here in Kern County?
I'll add, we operate 105 clinics from Hanford down to Bakersfield. And so going kind of upstream, once they end up in our hospitals, we feel like, wow, what could we have done sooner? So really continuing to lean in on the preventative medicine. What can we do to make sure we're closing care gaps, that people are getting their colonoscopies, they're getting their mammograms, that we're finding the cancers early, and then it's also the education. What can we do to better empower people to take better care of themselves so we can avoid the hospitalizations and the expensive things that really drives the healthcare expense in this country. And so we have our mobile clinic that moves around as well. In many communities where we serve, we are the only clinic. And so it is great to be able to bring providers to that town and partner to make sure nobody is left behind on the kind of this journey to better health for all.
Awesome, thank you.
You bet.
Maybell?
I think knowing what we went through for 3 years, we're realizing how resilient we are. And I really want to recognize our healthcare professionals for being the star of what we have gone through, and for really trying to put our patients at the center of everything that we do. With that being said, I think it's important, as people now will need access to care, how can we ensure that we are able to provide that, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's through virtual. We are now offering telephone visits, video visits, and most importantly, we got to move faster, right? Because we got to ensure that we meet the needs of our members. And so we have a Get Care now, which is through kp.org, where it's available 24/7 for our members. And again, it's about access to care, right place, right time, and convenience.
You bet.
BJ?
Yeah, so I love talking about this. We have incredible growth happening in 2023 and beyond, specifically on our Mercy Southwest campus. So the tower's going up. So we're going to see that construction building. We're going to see the steel going up. We're going to see that tower grow. It's the Hart Foundation Tower. I'm glad to be able to say that, through philanthropy in this community. Much like our caregivers are serving and devoting their resources and their time, so are community members. And really that's evident in how we're growing on our Mercy campus. But we see the population growth, and we've seen that through the years. So there's needed healthcare services in the Southwest and in the West area of Bakersfield. And so the tower is going to be complete right at the tail end of 2025. There's going to be additional infrastructure gains after that and phasing. But I'll tell you, the overall ancillary support areas for the hospital and just the growth with all of those new beds, new services, increased NICU, increased ICU, greater medical surgical beds, orthopedics, cardiology, neurosurgery. It's needed in our community. Our community continues to grow. And this is something that is going to not only bring the vital care that needs to be had in the Southwest, but also it's going to create jobs. It's going to create further infrastructure for our community to grow, and that's exciting, and that's going to put us on a good trajectory well into the future to deliver that care to this community.
Absolutely, with a county of close to 1 million people and exiting a pandemic, a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic that swamped the healthcare delivery system. It's exciting to see the developments, the BS in public health at CSUB, each of your respective organizations' growth. It is phenomenal to know that this area will continue to be serviced in the future with some great opportunities for people to improve themselves. Are there any last-minute thoughts that any of you have on the future of Kern County healthcare?
I think we'll add, I think that as we continue, Kaiser Permanente has a 5-star program. And so when you think about how hard it is to earn 5 stars, and both Dignity and Adventist Health have exceptional programs, and the growth has been very strong. Our AIS Cancer Center has seen phenomenal year-over-year growth. And so we're able to continue to recruit specialists to town that we haven't been able to have here before to elevate care across. And our cardiothoracic surgery program as well, the advanced heart care. And so all of us have growing programs, and I think it's a tribute to the quality of care that is here in Kern County. And as we continue to encourage people to stay here for their exceptional care, it's just job growth, it's tower growth, it's bed growth, and as we do a better job of keeping people healthy, we will have that clinic growth. And it's just exciting to see the great stuff that's happening in Kern County.
Well said. I think the bottom line is we have to also address upstream before downstream, and I think that I'm very fortunate that I have these two with me working side by side, because it does show our commitment to this community in keeping our people healthy and ensuring that we provide the highest quality of care.
And I'll just add, we're here for our community. Our caregivers have a heart of service, and we all enter into this industry because we love our communities, we love our people, we love our families, and we work in fields that we are able to show that. We're able to pour our kindness, into our patients and our family members and each other as we work together to meet the need that's so vital in our community. So it's an exciting time. It's growing out of a pandemic has been difficult, but I'll tell you, there are opportunities, there is growth, and we're excited to meet those challenges together. The outlook is good for Kern County and Bakersfield.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an underrated aspect of job security and a healthy economy, the health of individuals, making sure that your families are serviced, so that when you need to take care of your child, you have a ready source of care available, or you need to take care of your parents. So I'd like to thank each of you for joining me on this panel. It was a wonderful learning opportunity to learn about the challenges, but also the unique opportunities we have to both grow and service our clients here in Kern County and make Kern County as good as possible. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the 2023 Kern Economic Summit.
How often should I run payroll?
Egg roll, a deep-fried appetizer.
No, payroll.
Blowhole, a marine geyser.
Roll.
Playing relaxing spa music.
Business owners have questions.
Hey, Martin, so glad you came in. I can chat about payroll.
When you trust your business to your local Valley Strong Credit Union, you always have somewhere to turn for payroll, credit, and everything in between. Valley Business is Valley Strong.
Hello, I'm Mary Barlow, and I'm excited about the collaboration between education and local industry to prepare our students for the global economy, as evidenced by the recent Career Expo and Symposium. KEDC is a partner in the Kern Education Pledge, a commitment to support students from cradle to career by removing barriers, improving educational outcomes, and streamlining K-16 pathways. Enjoy today's summit.
I'm Stephanie Sievers, the CEO of Alta One Federal Credit Union, headquartered right here in Kern County since 1947. We understand the importance of a thriving economy and the positive growth it has in our communities. Last year, we grew our business lending portfolio by 113%. Our investment in the area created over $87 million in economic impact, and part of the reason we're certified by the U.S. Department of the Treasury's CDFI fund as the only community development financial institution headquartered in Kern County. Recently, we were awarded over $2.4 million to increase Alta One's ability to continue rebuilding and investing in our communities. We are committed to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs by providing affordable financial solutions that enable them to grow and prosper. We believe that by investing in our communities, we can create jobs, stimulate growth, and improve the quality of life for everyone. Alta One is proud to be part of this vibrant community. Thank you for your support for over 75 years, and we look forward to a future filled with prosperity and success for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for the Kern County Summit, the 2023 edition. My name is Nyakundi Micheka, and I'm an associate professor at California State University, Bakersfield. And what I'll do is I'm going to give you an overview of some of the interesting issues that have been taking place in Kern County over the last 2 years, and also see how those interesting relationships have been taking place around the county. So an overview of my presentation is going to be as follows. First, we're going to discuss the impacts of population change on California's economy. By California's economy, I'm going to talk about the whole economy and talk a little bit about the counties. We'll also focus on 5 California counties, the 5 counties that saw a decrease in population over the last 2 years, and 5 counties that saw an increase in population over the last 2 years. Finally, we're going to see whether these impacts had an effect on Kern County's economy. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, Kern County's economy gained about 10,000 individuals, and we'll see how those numbers played out within the economy. So the headlines. Over the last 2 years, we've seen headlines such as this, talking about California's population being on the decline. We've seen how California's population has dropped by certain numbers. And how have these numbers actually fared? In other words, if we were to look at these digits, how do they actually look? So if you were to look at the decrease in population over the last 2 years, you'll find that California lost about 500,000 people. Between 2020 and 2021, the state lost about 400,000 people, and between 2021 and 2022, we lost about 100,000 people. That played out in some counties. You'll see, for example, LA lost about 270,000 individuals, and that goes down to Kern County, so not Kern County, but Orange County. So these are the top 5 counties that saw a decrease in population. What about an increase in population? While this was happening over the last 2 years, the following counties witnessed an increase in population. Riverside County, for example, gained about 50,000 individuals, while Kern County, as I mentioned earlier on, gained about 10,280 people. If you were to look at these numbers over the last 2 years, between 2020 and 2021, Kern County gained about 4,000 individuals, and between 2021 and 2022, we gained about 6,000 individuals. Interesting. So if we were to look at a map of how this was playing out, the map there shows California's population change, and the dark blue shows an increase in population numbers, while the light blue shows a decrease in population numbers. One interesting thing you'll note is that, you'll see the decrease in population numbers in the Bay Area and in the LA area, but the increase in population, we know it happened in the inland part of the state, but it actually happened in the neighboring counties, the contiguous counties, which is interesting. So a couple of things could be happening here. Individuals from the Bay Area or from the LA area could be moving to the neighboring counties, or they could be moving to other states. So let's ask a few more questions. And one thing we want to note is that over the last, I'd say since 1901 to 2022, this is the first time California has seen a decrease in population. If you were to look at the average growth in population over that long period, California grew on average 3%, but the last 2 years has seen a decrease in population. The picture in Kern County is a little bit different. Population has always been growing, and it has been growing on an average of 1.5% every year. What has happened is quite interesting and quite new. We need to ask ourselves a few other things, or actually understand what population increase means. When we talk about population growing or population declining, you could either have people moving into the state, you also have people moving out of the state, their birth rates and their death rates. So when you combine all these numbers, then you get the aggregate population change. So in some of these regions, you may have a large birth rate compared to a death rate, or you may have a lot more people leaving compared to the ones who are coming in. So why do people move? Broadly, there are 3 ways in which you can broaden these reasons why people move. There are macro reasons. These are reasons that are beyond the individual's control. You have the micro reasons, which are individualistic decisions. And then you have meso, which are a combination of macro and macro. Okay, micro and macro. So when you look at the macro reasons, people move for economic reasons. They go for jobs. Maybe they have a job that is asking them to move from one place to another. There are also demographic reasons why people move. Some people choose to move when they reach a certain retirement age. So if you have a community that has a lot of people who are entering retirement, they may choose to move into areas where they feel they can get the services they want. You could also have increase in population density or political reasons. There are folks who may move because they feel that there's discrimination against something or there's conflict. Third, there could be environmental reasons that make folks move. You could have farmers moving to a particular region because of the productivity of that land. Or it just could be social reasons. You may have folks who are moving to seek more education, or there could be family obligations that make individuals move. Those are the macro reasons. These are reasons that are out there that are controlled by the economy. The meso reasons are obstacles. So the obstacles and facilitators that actually push folks to move. There could be political frameworks that work better for some people, which entice people to move to other regions or to go to other regions, or technology, which is a big one. We've seen an increase in people working from home over time. And that may entice people to move in regions where, for example, they feel that the cost of living is a little bit lower. The third, which is the micro reasons, people move for different reasons. One, again, I said for education, for wealth, or for marital status. You may have a spouse who has gotten a job in another state or in another county, and that may get folks to move from one region to another. So with all these things, they have actually, caused population change. So how does this population change affect California? And how does it affect California counties, right? There are new businesses that may form because of people moving from one place to another. You may have different education, you may have an increase in the students who are going to a particular school, so you may have crowding in education, or you may have overcrowding in cities. You may have an increase in inequality, crime, or housing rates or the price of houses may change. You may also see an increase in economic growth and labor. So there are very many reasons, or there are very many things that may occur due to population changing in California. What I do in the presentation now is I take the top 5 counties that saw a decrease in population and the top 5 counties that saw an increase in population, and I track some of these metrics to see how things changed. The first is GDP. So we lost folks over the last 2 years, or rather the population declined over the last 2 years. Did that change the economic growth or the economic landscape in California and the counties? We find that California's GDP still grew at 8%. And on the left-hand side is where you have the counties that actually saw a decrease in population, and on the right-hand side is where you have the counties that witnessed an increase in population. Long story short, most counties, or actually within our sample, all counties witnessed an increase in GDP, except Kern County, which witnessed a decrease in GDP. If you're looking at this at a map level, you'll find that, interestingly, the red color there, which means GDP growth, or actually the dark red actually means an increase in GDP. You'll find that the southern part of the state witnessed higher GDP growth, and you'll also see the Bay Area, which is, I'll talk a little bit about this. So San Bernardino County and Riverside County and LA County witnessed an increase in GDP compared to the others. So lighter red means less growth in GDP. In terms of personal income is money that comes in the form of wages, salaries, and benefits and dividends, etc., etc. So you may see certain trends where individuals from wealthy parts of the state moving to other parts, and they may change the wealth or the personal income of that particular area. What this data here shows is that personal income grew, and in Kern County it grew by 4%, but in all those regions, personal income grew, ranging from 14% down to 4%. California's personal income also grew by about 8%. Remember, here we're looking at the 2 years between 2020 and 2022 and asking ourselves, how did things change? And here we're seeing that personal income grew. If you're to look at this visually, you'll find that, of course, personal income in the Bay Area, which is usually expected, grew much higher than the personal income in other parts of the state. So what about new businesses? This is usually a very interesting area because folks sometimes, if you were to move from one area to another, or you are supposed to have, or if you had an influx of individuals coming into new areas, would you see an increase in applications for new businesses? And what the studies here, or what the numbers actually here from the US Census Bureau show, is that all the regions in our sample witnessed an increase in new business permit applications. In fact, the counties on the right-hand side of the screen, which are the counties that witnessed an increase in population, saw a much higher rate of new business applications compared to the ones on the left, which saw a decrease. In terms of formation, again, very interesting colors here. Dark red means we have more businesses forming. The southern part of the state witnessed a higher rate of new business applications compared to the other regions in the state. So very interesting numbers here. And some of us may ask, is this an anomaly? Meaning, whatever you're talking about or whatever I'm discussing here, did these occurrences only happen within the last 2 trends, or have we been seeing trends over time? Well, this slide here just shows that these are trends that have been taking place. So although people left the state and people moved into the state, the trends have been going on as usual. So this graph here just kind of shows that the trends continued. So some of the takeaways here are: 1, the contiguous counties witnessed population decrease, meaning the counties surrounding LA area and the Bay Area witnessed an increase in population. And we've seen the first drop in California population growth rate since 1901. Kern County's population grew, but the GDP dropped, and business applications increased in the southern part of the state. Let's talk about housing. When you have an increase in demand for housing, that could affect things like sales, right? Did we see an increase in housing sales across these counties? Well, one thing you'll notice is that throughout these counties, these are now 10 counties here, the 2020 period witnessed, that was the period that right after COVID, so there was not a significant increase in housing sales. But in 2022, all regions actually witnessed a decrease, that's last year, decrease in housing sales. What about home prices? This table here, or actually not this table, but this slide, the next slide is going to show the places where we saw an increase in population. Here where we see a decrease in population, only San Francisco witnessed a 2% decline in home prices. So prices, although they dropped in San Francisco, they grew in other parts of the state, and these are the parts that we're saying witnessed a decrease in population. Orange County home prices grew by 12%. In terms of home price changes, these are the counties that witnessed an increase in population. We find that home prices increased by 15% in Kern County. What that means is that homes would now be a little bit more expensive, and that can have significant impacts on individuals, especially those individuals who already live in the community and are having an influx of folks coming into the area and purchasing homes at possibly higher prices. So Kern County's home prices went up, and they went up the highest within our whole sample. Another metric that individuals like to look at is the time on market, or the days on market. So what we're saying here is that if you were to advertise your house, how long will the house be on the market before it's actually sold? So on average, in 2022 in Kern County, the number is about 14 days. So houses sell within 14 days. And what these graphs here show, they show that you can see that there's a trend that kind of mimics each county or is similar, and you'll find that the 2021 period witnessed a decline. In other words, it took much shorter for a house to be on the market. Houses sold faster in 2021 compared to 2022. And these trends continued across the state and across the 10 counties that we have. So despite people moving in and people, coming out, or population increasing and population declining, we still see trends that are uniform across both sets of regions. This graph here also shows a visual representation of where houses took longer to sell compared to others. The dark brown means homes took much longer to sell. So you'll see that the northern part of the country, or well, not the county, but the northern part of California witnesses an increased amount of time. Homes spend more time on the market in the northern part of the state compared to the southern part of the state. One thing we note is that these changes are not necessarily caused by recent population changes. These are trends, okay? So these changes we're talking about are actually trends. So the trends, what has been going on, has been continuing to go on. So what I'm trying to put out there. And then the effects of population change could also appear later. So this is a question we can continue to ask ourselves going forward. Individuals like to pose this question and ask, well, if Kern County's population grew by 10,000 individuals, where did these people come from? You can track some of these data, and you can get some of these numbers from the USPS, okay, the postal data, or from IRS data. And what we decided to do is we said, let's look at Kern County and try to look at population change over time. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask this question. We're going to look at the 2020 to 2021 period and the 2021 to 2022 period and ask ourselves, where did we see a significant change of address? So it means, if you see a change of address, it means that people are moving in or moving out. And one cool thing about this data is that the USPS gets information on people who are changing their address to move into the region. They also collect data on people who are changing their address to move out of the region. So if you have a lot of people moving in and out, then there's a lot of activity in a particular zip code, for example. So let's take Kern County, break it up into zip codes, and try to see where we had a lot of activity in change of address, or a lot of activity where people were moving in and moving out. The other thing is this data shows people who are moving in permanent change of address. It also shows folks who are moving in temporarily, and it also shows families that are applying for change of address, or individuals that are applying for change of address. And our discussion is going to focus on those three. So this graph here shows the permanent residence change of address over time. So the graph on the left, or the schematic, or the figure on the left, shows the activity or moving activity that took place between 2020 and 2021. And the figure on the right shows the activity between 2021 and 2022. One thing you'll notice is that the northeast and the northwest part of the county witnessed a significant change in moving activity or change of address activity. That happened between 2020 and 2021. But then in 2021 to 2022, the activity declined. So I've not talked much about the colors here, but just know that green moves the color green means that there's a lot of moving activity, while the brown shows that there's less activity. So within 2020 and 2021, there was more activity in the northeast and the northwest. But looking at the 2021 to 2022 period, that activity shifted to the southwestern part of the state. This is permanent residents, so these are people who are actually moving in to stay for a long time. Temporary residents data can also be collected, and these are individuals who are staying for about 1 year. So this could be your nurses, they could be individuals who work in the health sector or temporary jobs. Let's now move to individuals. In terms of activity, there was, again, these are now single individuals or just individuals who applied for change of address by themselves with no families. You'll see that the Northeast and the Northwest significantly saw an increase in change of address activity. That was between 2020 and 2021. Now, the year that followed, those regions saw a decrease in change of address activity, but the southeastern part, which is the Edwards Air Force Base area, witnessed an increase in change of address. One other way to look at this change of address data is to say these are actually individuals who are seeing new neighbors or new people moving in, which is interesting because there are a lot of implications that can come out of that type of activity in an area. If you're to look at the business world, we also saw similar activities, but the activities that took place between 2020 and 2021 only took place within the central part of Kern County. So the middle part of the county witnessed an increase in activity or moving activity, but then if you're to look at the year that followed, there was not too much activity, so there was less change in change of address activity. So why is this important? And just to put this out there, this is stuff that we're working on at Cal State Bakersfield. We're still looking at some of the ways we can tell an interesting story about this. This slide kind of summarizes what we've said. We've talked about permanent address, permanent change of address, individual change of address, and business change of address. We've talked about when it happened and how that changed over 1 year. But the importance of this is that this could have significant impact on the education outcomes. If you have a community that's significantly seeing an influx of people coming in and going, or change of address, or different individuals living there, that could change the education outcomes for that region, and it could also affect the future labor outcomes for the individuals who have lived in those areas. There's also a plethora of studies that have looked at health or depression, especially if you were to look at areas that have seen individuals who have changed their addresses a lot. So if you have a lot of residential change of address by individuals, that could also affect their health because it means they're not staying there for a long time, and it could lead to depression and well-being and all those other things. But the cool thing about this data is that we can actually see what's going on at the community level, and if you were to look deeper into this, there are certain ways you can dig deep into this data, and it'll tell you where people are coming from and where they're going, and that's some continued work that we're working on. So just to acknowledge this, I'd like to acknowledge my student research assistant, Michael Mantigi, for assistance for this presentation. And those are some of the references that I used for this study. Thank you so much for joining us for the 2023 Kern County Economic Summit. It was fantastic having this conversation with you, and I look forward to having more presentations with you in the future. Have a fantastic evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight, as part of the Kern County Economic Summit, we've assembled an expert panel to discuss carbon capture and storage here in Kern County. My name is Tony Rathburn. I'm the Chair of Geological Sciences at California State University, Bakersfield. I'm also the Interim Director of the California Energy Research Center. Joining me tonight on the panel are Ken Haney, Strategic Advisor for Carbon Management for the California Resources Corporation and Carbon TerraVault; Hilary Petrizzo, Carbon Capture and Utilization and Storage Commercial Development Manager for SoCal Gas Company; Alexei Vistotsky, General Manager for Carbon Capture, Utilization and Storage for Chevron New Energies; and Jonathan Dethloff, Carbon Strategy and Technology Manager for Era Energy LLC. Before we start the panel discussion, I would like to first tell you a little bit about what carbon capture is and why it's important and relevant for Kern County. CO2 is a greenhouse gas, and excess amounts in the atmosphere are causing climate change. And one of the ways to remove or reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is by directly capturing it from point sources, like a power plant, for example. And the CO2 is then liquefied and compressed and pumped deep within the earth into geologic formations that are surrounded by rock that seal the CO2 in and prevent it from escaping. Using different direct air capture technologies, it's also possible to capture CO2 directly from the air and through the same process pump it deep into the ground under the earth. The reason why we're talking with experts from oil and or gas companies in our panel tonight is because these companies have the expertise, have the experience, have the skilled workforce, and the knowledge of the geology underground in order to enable us to create hubs of carbon capture here in Kern County. Recent studies have shown that Kern County and surrounding areas are one of the best places in the country to be able to capture and store carbon underground. And with that brief introduction, I'd now like to ask our panelists a few questions. My first question is to everyone, and it's basically briefly highlight your company's approach to addressing a lower carbon future. And I'll start with you, Jonathan.
Well, thank you, Tony, and thank you for having me here as part of this panel. Really appreciate the opportunity. ERA believes in an all-of-the-above approach that's going to be needed for California's energy transition in order to continue to provide the energy and jobs needed for Kern County and the local economy. And so this includes continuing to produce safe, reliable, and affordable oil and gas, while also implementing technologies such as carbon capture and sequestration or solar to help reduce our carbon footprint. At the same time, we're also looking at other technologies that we can implement to help meet California's low carbon energy needs.
That's great. And you, Alexi?
Yes, Tony, thank you for the question. Great question and great to be here. So Chevron believes that future is lower carbon. So we put together a two-pronged strategy, and we allocated $10 billion for this decade to execute it. And the first part is lowering carbon emissions of our own operations, and as lowering carbon intensity of oil we produce. And the second part is helping other essential industries to our society to decarbonize. And we as Chevron, we have a portfolio of options to help other industries to decarbonize, which includes carbon capture and sequestration, which you talked about now, also hydrogen, renewable fuels, geothermal, offsets, and other things. So depending on the customer. So I think the opportunities in Kern Valley for all those activities is great, and we're looking forward to the building lower carbon future.
Excellent, excellent. Hillary?
Yeah, likewise, it's great to be here and great question. Very similar theme. So at SoCalGas, we're working to build the cleanest, safest, and most innovative energy company in America. And very similar goals. We'd like to get to net zero, both in our own operations and also in the energy that we're transporting. So if you think of SoCalGas, we've been around for 150 years. We have 100,000 miles of pipelines. We're very much an energy infrastructure company in Southern California. So net zero to us, when we think long term, it does mean probably transporting less natural gas in our pipelines. It also means increasing the transport of clean fuels. Again, hydrogen was mentioned, renewable natural gas. And then for my aspect as well, it's looking at the opportunities for carbon management. So as you talked about capturing from the point source, permanently sequestering it, you need that transport aspect too. So that's what we're looking at.
Great. Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. A few things to add, I suppose. California Resources, we're a California-only company. Our carbon strategy is really underpinned by our storage complexes in California. We have a huge mineral position in California. We have the bulk of the deep storage for CO2. So we formed our Carbon TerraVault business to store CO2. Both our internal emissions as well as third-party emissions. So that's really the fundamentals of California's resources business model. We're also looking at our internal emissions continuously and how to lower our oil and gas emissions as well as our third-party emissions and partners that we're working with on both the capture side and the storage side. So California Resources, like Chevron, somewhat of a holistic approach centered in California.
Excellent, excellent, great. My next question is for Alexi. Can you help us understand what actions and plans Chevron has underway to provide affordable, reliable, ever cleaner energy in the San Joaquin Valley?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. And Tony, as you know, Chevron is a California oil company. We've been in California and San Joaquin Valley for over 135 years, and we do believe, just like Jonathan mentioned, we do believe that in the long term, it's our conventional oil and gas and new energies are both needed to satisfy our world demand for energy. In San Joaquin Valley, we're happy to be and proud to be a community and being part of the San Joaquin Valley community for many, many years. And in our San Joaquin Valley operations, it's becoming a hub for new energies innovations. And we, as a Chevron, we invest in different technology, particularly carbon capture technology. And right here in San Joaquin Valley, we're building those large industrial scale technology pilots to help reduce cost of carbon capture, which is very expensive. And one of our most mature pilot is called Svante. It's in our Kern River field next to our existing operations. And we're doing it together with the Department of Energy. And the objective there is, can we reduce the cost of capture from $100 per ton to $30 per ton? And we also have many other pilots in different phases of development. So that's one technology. So San Joaquin Valley is our innovation hub for decarbonization. We also decarbonizing our own assets. And last year we announced the intention to build a carbon capture plant in San Joaquin Valley next to our Eastridge facility to capture CO2, dehydrate it, put it in a pipeline, and store it deeply underground safety permanently. So those are our plans. We have a lot of synergy in San Joaquin Valley with our conventional business, and we're happy to be part of the energy transition.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the Lawrence Livermore put out a study recently that demonstrated that in order to reach California's carbon neutral goals within the time frame that's set, we're going to have to employ a lot of different types of methods to reduce CO2, and one of them, importantly, is carbon capture and storage underground.
Absolutely.
My next question is to you, Ken. Given the many options being discussed for carbon removal, carbon capture, direct air capture, hydrogen, what does the California Resources Corporation see as the best short-term and long-term opportunity mix in Kern County?
Yeah, it's a good question because we're starting to hear a lot about a lot of different applications for carbon removal and carbon management. So we've been looking at this for quite a few years now, and what we see is, from the early adoption standpoint, carbon capture type of processes on point sources are the initial, I'd call it the low-hanging fruit. It's the most technically ready from a technology standpoint and also economically ready from an economic standpoint, is to go out to plants like power plants, cement plants, steam generation facilities in the oil field, those type of emitters, capture those emissions at those sources and store them underground. We also have the advantage that a lot of these facilities can be co-located with the storage. So we don't have to transport CO2 over long distances here in Kern County to get the source tied to the sink. So I think that's the first mover. Some of the other technologies you probably heard about, such as blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, direct air capture, those are not as ready technologically, and they're much more expensive. However, the federal government has stepped in and done some heavy subsidizing of these opportunities, and we're seeing those processes move forward because of the federal dollars that are now coming into play. We've all heard of the IRA Act and the funding out of the federal government. So that's the next wave. It's realistically probably 10 to 20 years off, but the federal government is doing their best to accelerate that. The last thing I'd mention is the need for the synergy with infrastructure and the ability for Kern County to synergize these projects with our existing oil and gas infrastructure. Not just our employee base and our skill set, but also the actual infrastructure. Pipelines, pipeline corridors, storage reservoirs, using oil and gas wells and reservoirs to do storage. That synergy is also very important, and that's part of CRC's vision of how this all comes together and moves forward.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's the combination of both the knowledge of the geology and the technology and engineering that's really going to help us put this together. My next question is for you, Jonathan. How do we ensure that carbon capture and storage does not negatively impact the health and safety of local communities?
Thanks for that question. So, the health and safety of people and the environment has been and always will be ERA's #1 priority. We want to protect the environment and the California landscapes that make this state such a great place to live. CCS in California will be under very strict environmental regulations, the same way oil and gas in California is now, under some of the most strictest safety and environmental standards in the world. CCS involves, as you mentioned earlier, it involves injecting CO2 miles below the surface. In many cases, in reservoirs that have held oil and gas for millions of years, thus giving us confidence that it can hold CO2 for the long term. One of the important things why we want to protect the environment is our workers are also residents of the local community. As a Bakersfield resident and having a young family, I too am concerned with the local air quality and water quality, and so ultimately we want to do this the right way. And ERA, and I think the entire industry, is committed to making sure that CCS has a positive impact on the environment and safety.
Yeah, I think that's a critical aspect, to make sure that people understand that the purpose here is to improve the environment and to improve the quality of life here in the valley. Yeah, great. My next question is for you, Hillary. How is SoCalGas looking to leverage federal funding for carbon capture, utilization, storage to advance its vision of a lower carbon future in Kern County?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as Alexi mentioned, as Ken mentioned, there's quite a bit of federal incentives right now for carbon management. So right now there's $12 billion available for all sorts of projects. And touching on what Jonathan said, the federal funding is very much tied to a whole picture aspect. So it's looking at the engineering, it's engaging with the community, it's looking at the safety aspects. So for SoCalGas, what we're very much focused on is looking at those federal funding opportunities that allow us to really safely advance projects. We're particularly looking at opportunities focused on that engineering design. So again, how can we do this safely? How can we site pipelines mindfully so that we are really working with the community? So I see a lot of opportunity there. And I'll just reiterate too, we want those federal dollars to come to Kern County.
Right, exactly. And I think it's really important to note that with companies working together in terms of transport and storage underground, I think that's a really key, important aspect that we need to improve upon as we move forward to make these things a reality.
Could I add something real quickly to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Hillary touched on it. The community benefits planning piece in getting the benefits and spreading the benefits across our communities in Kern County. That is a huge, huge emphasis for the federal government in these dollars. And it's always been an emphasis for the state government as well. So we're talking about job training, we're talking about retraining, we're talking about synergizing with current oil and ag careers and jobs to really bring this to bear. And it's a huge focus in this funding is community benefits.
That's right. And again, another important point to make here is that the federal government is requiring for these federal dollars that we interact with the communities, that we get input from the communities, and that what we're doing benefits those communities. Otherwise, the funding doesn't come.
Correct.
Okay, so my last question here is for everyone. How can Kern County communities participate and benefit in the energy transition? Specifically, what are the transferable skills and workforce development opportunities? And I'm going to start with you, Ken.
Okay, yeah, and it's a perfect segue from the discussion of federal funding, because we've applied for federal funding with partners, including SoCalGas, and the community benefits plan and developing the community benefits plan is a very big piece of that. So one is to educate themselves. We're going to be very transparent in our plans and in our projects, and the community can stay engaged with that transparency and understand exactly what we're doing, participate. We're going to be out in the communities holding events and holding information sharing. And a lot of the actual financial benefits from these projects are going to go straight into the communities. So the communities need to be aware, be engaged, and I know in our project we recently looked at, we had a lot of community engagement early on. So we know that a lot of these community organizations already know about what we're doing and they're already starting to engage. So awareness is a key one. There's going to be a lot of opportunities coming out of CSUB, coming out of Kern CCD. There's going to be educational opportunities. There's going to be job retraining, internships through our local universities and colleges. So there's going to be a lot of ways to participate.
Great points. Hillary?
Yeah, I mean, very much what Ken said as well. It's an exciting time for Kern County. It's a privilege for the gas company to be able to engage with folks in the community, with Cal State Bakersfield. You know, I do see this, like Ken noted, this is a long-term process. So even for us as a regulated utility, you know, we have steps we're going through on the policy side, which gives a lot of opportunity for engagement. You know, carbon capture, I think, is still new to a lot of people. Even at the gas company, I spend a lot of time just talking to folks about, you know, what the future could look like. And for them, it's very exciting, the retraining aspect. You know, you're a pipeline engineer. In the future, the pipelines may be natural gas, they may be hydrogen, they may be CO2. Your skill set is still very valid. So when we work on the federal funding applications, I'm talking to colleagues through all aspects of SoCalGas. So I do see a big retraining aspect, and I can say that personally as well. I used to work on oil rigs here in Kern County, and now I have a career in carbon management that I love. And I'm very excited for what the future will hold, because I think there's a lot of potential for new low carbon jobs too.
Right. Well, and I think it's really important to note that although there's going to be a lot of need for retraining, et cetera, but a lot of the workforce that we have already is in place. So the skills that we already have, that your companies already have, are going to be useful and needed for carbon capture in the future. So in terms of job loss or everyone having to retrain, that's not really the case. That's needed, but there's a lot of workforce skills, et cetera, in oil and gas that we need and we're going to continue to need as we go through this energy transition.
Absolutely.
Alexi.
No, thank you. And to build on what Ken and Hillary mentioned, I think in the new energy space, there's a lot more need for partnerships, right? So even compared to our conventional oil and gas. So that's the one trend we've seen. And it's both partnerships with the communities, it's partnership with the universities, it's partnership with the companies and technology companies. And that partnership will build multi-billion-dollar businesses. So this is a multi-billion-dollar business that will bring a lot of jobs to the communities. And also, we partner, Chevron as an operator, we partner with universities all the time. For example, we partnered with the CSUB for the last 30 years with in various spaces. So that's obviously a one avenue for community to get involved. And on a skill transferability, you know, my family asked me that question, my coworkers asked me that question. And if you look at the jobs, they're directly transferable from oil and gas. So if it's carbon capture, you have to drill a well to inject CO2. That's what we do in oil and gas. We have to build a small pipeline or long pipeline. We have to build a facility. And so the engineering skill sets, the construction skill sets, the operations, it's very transferable with slightly retooling, which universities like CSUB and community colleges can help the workforce. So I think it's great that all our skill sets are completely transferable. We just need to be curious and get a little bit retooled, and it brings a lot of benefits and opportunities from all these collaborations.
Great, great. And now you, John.
Yeah, so I mean, I think as we all recognize, the energy transition is going to be a massive undertaking, a massive opportunity. I mean, we're essentially trying to remake the energy infrastructure that's been built over the past 100 years in a matter of a few decades. And so as Alexi pointed out, you know, this is a tremendous opportunity for Kern County. CCS alone could be a multi-billion-dollar industry in Kern County. And as you were mentioning, Tony, oil and gas will lead the way. You know, I mean, we have the assets, we have the experience, but most importantly, we have the people. You know, I mean, as we all said, you know, the folks working, you know, whether it's construction, maintenance, you know, development of oil and gas assets are the same folks that are needed for CCS and other energy transition opportunities. And so, you know, that'll be a tremendous opportunity for all those folks to continue their careers in energy in Kern County. And then also, you know, as everybody was alluding to, you know, we also need to work with the communities, with academic institutions to ensure that we continue to have a pipeline of talent that will be needed and continue to have job opportunities for next generations in the energy industry in Kern County.
Right. And I think the message here is that it's going to take everybody. It's going to take the community. It's going to take the university. California State University Bakersfield is looking forward to working with all of you. It's going to take everyone getting together and making this all happen, and we will benefit from these new technologies, these new carbon capture efforts. With that, I want to thank you for joining us this evening, and we look forward to talking with you again and some of these other new and exciting things that are happening here in Kern County.
Thank you for joining us this evening for the 2023 Kern County Economic Summit. We look forward to seeing you next year.